All right, and welcome back to episode 79 of The Bench, where if you thought that we were getting rid of weak auras and weak aura-like add-ons in Midnight, let me tell you, you are wrong, as now there is a Northern Sky Raid Tools add-on that I would describe as weak aura-esque. And as you can see on screen right here, you got some kick trackers that are happening with these add-ons. Squishy, what's actually going on with all these add-on changes? Because I thought that add-ons were not supposed to have any performance enhancement elements to it. Was that a lie?
I have to imagine that this was an oversight. Realistically, to my understanding, so first of all, this mechanic is there are ads that you need to interrupt, and all of them except one have a shield. When you interrupt the one without a shield, all of the remaining stacks go down one, making another one without a shield, and so on and so forth until all of them are gone. And all this does is it tells you the number of stacks of a shield.
Yes.
Which is public information. And that's where I think the oversight occurs. Because realistically, nothing is done wrong here, but Blizzard is waging war against people that want and are hungry for this information. And they will continue to do so, I think, until Blizzard manages to find a way to stop that completely. But
I think that like the general message at the very beginning of this beta cycle where Blizzard was like, we don't want add-ons to have any performance enhancement elements, I felt like that kind of thought process made sense. Not the truth. I will be the first to say that is not the truth. You are still going to need add-ons. Maybe they'll be a little bit less powerful, but not by a ton.
You will absolutely still need add-ons.
Yeah.
You will probably need more add-ons than before.
We're going to need more add-ons than before, but that's because weak auras isn't an all-in-one solution, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you want to know my hot take, they should have just deleted all add-ons. Like, just...
Yeah, I mean, I don't like the direction that they're going, right? Like, on what... I mean, maybe everyone foresaw this, and they're like, see, Grawl, we told you this was going to happen. This is terrible. But, like, I'm starting to get into the camp where I don't like the changes, because...
This is bullshit. I mean, I'm with you.
There are... Like, essentially now you have still all the bad side... Like, what have they done? Like, you know what I mean? Like, what is the difference now? Like, other, you know, beside... Like, what is the difference between Midnight and War Within, except for doing all this stuff is way more convoluted and annoying now, and all these add-on developers have to rip everything apart?
Computational add-ons are gone. That's about the only thing. So stuff like Omni CD and Hekili are out, but like that's the only thing, right?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure yes.
I mean, I feel like
Hekili is in the game, more or less.
Yeah.
And I mean, like, Omni CD wasn't, I would describe as an offender, right? Like, I'm going to talk people off the ledge saying that Omni CD, like, it's fine that if it goes away, because I don't think it's that crucial of an add-on. But, like, the hope was that it's going away and things are going to be more simplified, and now it's just like, these are basically the only targets now. If there's going to be a raid week or a raid package or whatever you want to call it, add-on. And yeah, I guess keep in mind that, like, you know, again, we're going through all these different stages of the beta, so this is just a snapshot of how it looks in the current time, but it definitely is a little bit weird to see all of the add-ons just back now.
We're getting too close, I think, to the add-ons being back. I am with you. I think that this... I agreed with their general message about what was going on with all the add-on stuff on the beta, and this is not correct. I think that everything that has happened here almost feels like they're going in the absolute wrong direction. But I don't know. Like, at some point, do we just go back to what we had for forever? Because this
I feel like that never works, right? Like, game developers, from my experience, like, never will be like, nope. Like, there was the meme about the Ripcord, right, in Shadowlands. Never in the history of games have developers made a change and then been like, nope, we were wrong, and then they just go back to how it was. Or, like, I shouldn't say never, but very, very, very rarely.
I mean, this feels like we're literally at the exact same spot, though. Like, I feel like nothing is changing. Like, with the...
Yeah, I don't know. I guess let's see what they do, but they're giving... there's a lot of information,
and based on what mobs are casters and what mobs aren't. And I know you said that thing about the mana bar. but I think that there is a large distinction between understanding that a mob has a mana bar and is a caster, and the nameplate that is attached to that mob is colored a different color based on the condition of whether or not it's a caster.
Well, I think that's okay. I don't. To me, that's not really. If anything, like having colored.
It's not a
you're
part of the
against
base.
colored nameplates. Oh wow.
It's not.
I
A part
see
of
what
the,
you're
it's
saying.
not a part of the
I see
base
what you're saying.
game. Like I don't mind.
Okay,
I actually don't.
But
mind
I would
color
advocate for the
nameplates.
base game to have that functionality. Then.
Well, yeah.
Like, why isn't there just a drop down that says all nameplates one color and then like color? You know what? Well, like whatever the options are, right? Like either lieutenants and casters or just casters or whatever. Like, because to me,
I
like
thought that was the goal here is to make the base game better, but the base game is not improving in the correct direction. Instead, Blizzard is now offloading a bunch of this shit to add-ons again, which then if we were offloading the UI to add-ons already, why not just leave it at where it was? Like, what are we even doing here?
Like, a big thing is they need to have, there needs to be an elegant solution to do the things that people want to do, right? So, like, with add-ons, you kind of can have not an elegant solution. Like, for instance, with color-coded nameplates, the way UI people like me or Dorky or whoever did it is you would literally go by mob, name by name, and be like, okay, this one's blue, this one's beige, this one's blue, this one's red, while you're playing on PTR, right? But 90% of the people that interact with color-coded nameplates, they just copy someone else's profile, right? So it's not like everyone has to do this. But in the Blizzard UI, like, that wouldn't be how it would work, right? Like, you wouldn't go into the options menu and like, okay, Defias Trapper is this, Defias Pillager is this, Defias, you know, like, you would, but something in the, like, now it seems like there could be that, right? Like, if it's, okay, color casters this, color lieutenants this, right? That could be a drop down. That's very, very easy to have a drop down in your game. So why? To me, these are like a little bit separate issues. Like, to me, the nameplates is like them dropping the ball with their current UI. Like, they need to improve the in-game UI. Like, the point is that you want the in-game UI to be good. But then the other part of it is like, well, also add-ons are, you know, going back to doing all this crazy shit that, you know, anchored things on nameplates with numbers to tell who to kick what. Like, that's I don't know.
So for me, they had two parts, right? One was to remove like the computational aspect of it, and the second one was basically to make it so that add-ons were not a competitive gameplay advantage. Those two things just like the second statement and goal in itself is just flawed. Add-ons are always going to be a competitive advantage because they let you show information in a different way, one that more easily parses to each player. And I think that, like, the second goal was fundamentally flawed from the start.
Well,
but I think the first goal still holds true.
Well, they said that you shouldn't be able to do anything with add-ons that you can't do in the base game, and that is not true. I think that is unequivocally just not true.
I mean, that was not true from the start. Like, you can't reorganize stuff the way you want to just from the base UI. So like that entire thing was I don't know what was going on there, but I think that goal is just been false from the start. But I think good.
I was just going to say, I think there's different degrees to that. Like, I don't think that's black and white. You know, like to say, oh, I want to change the texture on my health bars, or like I want to change the way shields are displayed, you know, is a little bit different from like, I want to play an air horn when a spell goes off, or I want a countdown for 5 seconds when I engage with this spellcaster. You know, like there are different degrees of what displaying information differently is. And I think at a very basic level, that's like, there's still a fine place for add-ons to exist.
Yeah.
But we're back to not a very basic level with how things are being displayed.
There are text alerts as well that can show up in the middle of your screen, correct, Squishy?
Yes. I mean, you basically, the way it works is stuff like liquid reminders, or what is it? It's called timeline reminders now. Relo's Northern Sky Raid Tools has a version of this. Basically, a bunch of things are doing it where you can no longer script it to exact phase changes or stuff like that, so the timers might be a little off. But from the start, you can essentially use something like WoW Utils, which is made by Viserio and his team, where you can script an entire encounter out using your personals and have text reminders still from the start of encounter. It just might be off by a couple seconds if you push early or push a little late, but like you can still have a thing in the middle of your screen that says soak, or you can have a reminder to press your defensive here, or press your healing cooldowns, or stuff like that, which I think people were really happy to get rid of this stuff, but apparently it's back.
I'm happy to get rid of this shit. This is some of the stuff that I wanted gone. Like,
yeah, Mr. Bend the Earth Elements.
I mean, yeah, if you're gonna give it to me, yeah, I'm gonna use it. It's OP, but like I don't want to use it.
And that's where I think most people are right now. It's like I think the second goal was a pretty big failure.
Yeah.
But that being said, I am still hyped for the first for the first goal being satisfied. Unless of course they like pull back on it. But did you see the Tally tweet, by the way?
No.
Hold on. Let me pull it up.
What?
I just remembered about it. This was going around and people were like question mark, question mark, question mark.
Dude,
Usually that means a leak.
I've been so
something
deep in
leaked.
Okay, there it is.
the TFT rabbit hole. I've been
So-
really
People are discussing whether or not this is bait or if this is legit leak.
Yeah, so
do you
Tali's
think?
been known to have connections and leak things, but I mean, like, yeah. So basically, the tweet, what he tweeted, the add-on Ripcord is slowly being pulled, but I believe we might hear about a big yank pretty soon. Basically, alluding to what we were talking about early was like, you know, things going, just being like, fuck it. You know, things are going back to how they were. To be fair, in my, like, so at least from what I'm caught up with right now, the biggest setback from the current UI to the base game right now is the fact that weak auras doesn't exist. And that's simply a choice by weak auras, right? Like, that's just, there's still a huge portion of weak auras that would be incredibly useful that people could use and that would work in the game. Weak auras is just choosing not to continue the project. So and that's not really a Blizzard yank, you know, but I mean, that's what else would be left other than weak auras being like, yeah, by the way, we're coming back.
Tettles,
Like, I don't know what this could mean.
I mean, I think that what Growl said earlier is absolutely right. Where, like, I don't see game developers being like, yeah, guys, we were wrong. You know what? We went through this beta cycle for 3 months where we tried to do all of these things and we were wrong. We're going back to add-ons. Like, I don't see them doing that. They've walked some of the changes back to where we're in this weird gray area where things are, in my opinion, worse, not better. I don't know. It's really hard to gauge. This is kind of what I was saying earlier on whenever we were like seeing the initial like stages of beta where there were like no add-ons like in development. And we didn't really know the functionality limitations of what add-ons really had. And now we're starting to see what the functionality limitations of what add-ons have as more accomplished add-on developers are trying to put together larger projects, and we're seeing stuff like Northern Sky Raid tools and stuff like that come out, and we're like, okay, so, you know, maybe Blizzard didn't go hard enough to actually achieve any of their fucking goals that they said. Instead, now there's these weird workarounds. I would be very surprised if they actually did something drastic like, all right, computational add-ons are back on the table. Like, I would be really, really surprised if they were just like, you know what, we're keeping up with the status quo that we've had for the last 20 years. What's your read on it, Squishy? I mean, you're more in tune with this kind of thing.
I don't know that they would ever pull that back. That was the whole point of the change, and I don't think they would ever do that.
I don't think that they're... the problem that I have with it is I don't know if it actually... Any of the stuff that they've done, I don't know if it achieves any of their stated goals. Like, they wanted...
I think it did.
You do? You think it's gonna make it easier for them to develop bosses and create content for the players that isn't limited or stagnated by add-ons? I don't think
that was a direct goal.
Okay.
I mean, it was definitely part of a goal of removing computational add-ons. I mean, the goal was just to remove computational add-ons. Like that, I think that was goal one, which on two fronts makes encounter design easier, and also, I don't know the exact wording they use, but essentially puts an intellect challenge back into the game, aka players using their brain to do things instead of being told directly what to do.
I mean,
I cannot comment on the first part of that, but I can say that I do think this will make people at least use their brain more.
Okay. On a per raid basis, how many encounters do you think actually have computational add-ons that are, let's say, necessary? I don't want to say like, okay, you know, everybody's weak aura pack has a computational add-on for like energy prediction or whatever, right? I'm talking about like what is actually necessary on a per boss basis. I think whenever people were doing the triangle soaks on Dimensius, that would have been a required one. What else is required? I think of some of the historic ones. It'd be like jailer assignments and stuff like that.
Well, to me, I think the problem is not necessarily required, but like it's just the way we do things now, if that makes sense. Like, can you do this mechanic without a weak aura? Yes.
Sure.
But let's just have the weak aura automatically assign things and everyone turn your freaking brain off and just everyone listen to the weak aura, right? And to me, that sucks. Like, that's bad gameplay. But from like a raid leader perspective, or from I'm managing a bunch of kids at a daycare in my raid, like you just want to have a very strict, okay, like, I guess, like, for example, let's say that,
I mean, Squishy, this season, how many assignment weak auras existed? Like, I'm not even talking about like required versus not. I'm talking about just like how many notes did you set up for?
Fractilis was one. Dimensius.
Lumathar had the beams, right?
Lumathar had the beams. Yeah, Dimensius phase 1. Dimensius phase 3.
Okay, so 3 bosses.
Though phase 3 was static, right? Like phase 3, you just go to the same plan every time, and that one's not an issue. Lumathar was also static, but like it depends what you're going for here. Like the dynamic.
I wouldn't even call Lumathar.
Yeah,
but you used an add-on on Lumathar to tell you whether or not other people had stacks or not. Like, did you need it? No. Like, nobody in a pug uses that add-on or anything either.
I think we will know by the end of next tier whether or not this was successful or not. By the last boss of the Keldanos raid on Mythic, which is Dimensius combined with Star Augur memory mechanic.
Oh yeah,
not Dimensius, sorry, Denathrius. If you haven't seen, and slight spoilers, basically the last phase there are 2 separate teams in different phases, and you have to collide the stars in the correct order, but you can't collide outside of it or something like that. We don't know exactly how it works, but
so like
it's a really weird mechanic. Yes, but also a Denathrius 2 separate phases thing where you're like mirrored from each other.
Gotcha. Kind of interesting mechanic.
I think we'll know for sure how that happens.
Yeah, I don't know, man.
I mean, I guess I'm just thinking about a mechanic like, okay, so think about Dimensius P1. So what are they called? The gravity thing, where 2 people per side get targeted, and they have to go away from the raid, but they want to be kind of like in a line, right? With one person in front, one person in back. And so, okay, when you do that mechanic, you're kind of like looking at what class the other person is. Okay, who goes to the front, who goes to the back, right? There's like some thinking and some play. But the assignments weak aura just tells you to go front and back all the time, right? So like one example is like we had a demon hunter that would like to like fell rush or something and go to the back because it would help his melee uptime, and then he could just press one button and get to the back. But he's a melee, so it assigns him to the front, and it's like, well, just shut up and go to the front. Like, you're assigned to the front. Stop playing around what you want to do or what's good for your class. Just shut up and do what the weak aura tells you to and don't think. But like, I just don't really like that gameplay. Do you need a weak aura to tell you who goes in the front, who goes back? No.
My
but because it simplifies things, then people use it, and then because people use it, it makes the fight less fun. Is my sort of point.
Yeah, I guess my thought process was like there is a single-digit number of add-ons that are or weak auras that are going to end up getting actually negatively affected by this, and it's like, or like actually getting removed, and I'm just like, is that really what their goal was? Was just, these really strange outliers? I thought the game was supposed to be getting more maybe simplified or something, but it does not feel like we're going that way. It feels like it's about, I think that combat pacing is slowing down in Mythic Plus a little bit, which is like a little bit of a different discussion, but
I think they personally, as somebody that enjoyed this kind of thing, I think this is exactly what they're going for.
Okay.
Like for me, I support this level of, I want my brain to be engaged in some way during encounters and not just like Fractilis be told where to go every step of the way. That is not gameplay to me.
You're going to put reminders on your screen again. Like,
are you putting words of? I mean, I've played Suboptimally for a while. I know this. I don't use reminders currently.
Well, that's the job. That's the job of the developers, though, is to give us challenges where we can't just be like, You know, it's not a target dummy. Like that's why there's the definition of a patchwork fight, right? You just sit there and you attack the boss, and it's like that's the whole job of the encounter designer. I mean, the way I think of it is like, okay, imagine WoW is baseball, except for like add-ons are something in the game, right? No, see, shut up. So imagine that, like, okay, you play baseball, except for anyone can bring whatever kind of glove they want. You can just, there's no rules about gloves. You can just go make whatever kind of glove you want and just show, right? And then eventually people are going to start showing up with ridiculous shit, right? There's these giant gloves and these magnet gloves and sticky gloves, right? Because like, and that's sort of how add-ons are right now with WoW.
Your hand.
Yeah, right. So like, it's basically how the game is with add-ons, where, you know, Blizzard has all these different things like your HP and your mana and, you know, how fast your character moves. But when your UI, the player has full control over it and you can do whatever you want with it. And I feel like it just makes it harder in general to make a fair and interesting, challenging fight when the player has full control over something and Blizzard can't really like say, oh, you can do this or you can't do this.
I have a feeling that this is step one of a multi-step process for them. I think they ran out of time here. I'm gonna be dead honest with them. I think they bit off more than they could chew. I can pretty like say that I think they ran out of time here, and this is step one. I think there will be more coming. But I think what this does right now is it removes a lot of the outliers, some of the worst offenders of add-ons to ever exist. Stuff like the good old, you know, Neltharian's lair shell game marker, Weekora. Do you remember how many times they tried to break that?
Yes, I do remember that one.
Yeah, like I think that stuff is like that is always going to be got
GUID, right? Because
something like that.
Yeah,
like, you know, it's obviously like a mechanic they've done twice now in Neltharian's Lair and then Kaiveza. So it's not something that happens too often. But for the times that it does happen, it kind of ruined a mechanic for them. And that is the level that I think they are gaining some design space back. They are getting rid of some of the extreme outliers of add-ons.
I mean, I think what Tunnels is saying though is like
it's just not in opposition of what they're saying. Like, did Blizzard not like come out and like, all right, we're putting our foot down. These are all the changes that we're gonna have, and you're just gonna have to deal with it. And now it's like none of it was true. Like literally none of it. They're all walking it back. Like what? Am I crazy?
No, which is why I think they ran out of time. I think it's very clear. Like the damage meter stuff, like. They came back, we're like, yeah, all this is planned, and we still haven't seen some of the stuff there. Like, I absolutely think they thought they could do more with the time that they had, and they haven't. So now they're giving people back more than they wanted to, but they have to because of the current situation that they're in.
I feel like speculating whether or not they ran out of time is just like not very fruitful because like I don't fucking work at Blizzard. You don't work at Blizzard, right? We don't.
Sure. But I think this explains the shift in their philosophy.
Yeah, it could explain it. I mean, 100 different. They could have changed their mind. They could be like, this is the wrong way.
It's just a weird trade-off. Like this isn't really what I envisioned. Like so, when I said
this is what they said,
I think Well, I envisioned this right because let's be honest, none of us expected a fully perfect launch of Midnight with removal of add-ons, right? But what I imagined is our UI is a little bit janky, but we save time on not having to worry about having a bunch of add-ons and computational shit, right? Like we can just play the game. Yep. Is the UI going to be not as good and janky? Yeah, but there's the upside of like we don't have to deal with all these add-ons. We save so much time. Maybe Blizzard might make some cooler fights, blah, 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 right? Now it's almost like, what is the upside? Like now we still have to mess around with add-ons and still do all this stuff just to do what we want. But then it's like, there's just these weird fringe things that are being removed that like weren't even really that big of a deal in the first place. I don't know. Like I just think that I just think they didn't do enough. Like I think they gave back. I mean, and I don't even know if they fully did it on purpose, but sure. I just and again, to be fair, I don't necessarily think all the add-on stuff is bad, but for me, the pro of having the game be more accessible, having the game be more watchable because not everyone's UI looks similar, having things be plug and play. Like to me, this is what I liked about the add-on removal. I'm not like, oh, I hate all add-ons, but these are the upsides that I saw. And now all my upsides that I was looking forward to are gone. So like now these upsides of like, you know what I mean? Like it's just disappointing.
I think like philosophically, the things that I wish add-ons did was I wish it allowed you to customize your UI in a way that you felt comfortable with, right? Whenever I'm talking about UI, I'm talking about like heads-up display elements of things that are already like baked into the game. And how you customize them is really kind of up to you. That's kind of what I wish the scope of add-ons were. But now you get into this weird state where add-ons, instead of just being this heads-up display editor, will now give you competitive advantages because now it's doing things that the default UI literally cannot do. And that's where it loses me. It's like, if it's not doable by the default UI, why the fuck can an add-on do it? And like the things that I really don't like, the reminder add-ons, I'm not a huge on those. TTS, obviously, you guys have heard me preach about that for a while. Not a huge fan of TTS add-ons. I actually didn't like the kick trackers. You know, Growl said that he doesn't think removing Omni CD is a big deal. I actually think that removing Omni CD is a pretty big deal. Not being able to track the rest of your party's kicks is nice. I really didn't like the gameplay that spawned out of that kind of thing. And so I think that like removing kick trackers is good. And I think that like, yeah, no assignment weak auras, those are all really nice things, but we didn't do all of that, right? That their stated goal was that all of that stuff is going away. And that, you know, it's not. It is, you know, there's still going to be a competitive advantage by having these add-ons. And I think that to me is like, they should have done more. I'm a little bit disappointed in like where this has landed, admittedly.
I feel like we ended up in the middle of like, we got rid of some of the reasons people wanted it.
You're
and
right.
It would have been better to either leave it or to
that's
kill
exactly
it all.
what I'm saying. Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying. Thank you. Like, either if we would have just kept going how we were going, I think that would have been fine. And I think if we would have also just nuked everything and then just left it at ground zero and gave them more time to rebuild the UI and left it janky for a while. But I guess I just don't understand, because if it's like Blizzard is scared of releasing the game with a janky UI sort of thing. I mean, the UI has always been shit. Like, sorry, but
the base UI has been bad for as long as I've played this game.
If you're a casual player and you just kind of like mess around and play the game, whatever, the UI is totally passable, totally fine. You don't care to use add-ons unless you want to. And if you're a competitive player, the game is shit.
People in the Race World first use the base UI.
Kind of. I mean, not exactly.
Some of the elements. And I might argue that they are using it and good with it because they've used it for a long time and are good with it for a long time. Like,
but sure,
you know,
but that shows that it conveys the information that you need.
Sure.
But
again,
yeah,
most of it, right? Not all of it, most of it, because they are using weak aura stuff. Like, they have, you can say that Race World first people use the base UI, and they do, but they also have, like, what do they call it? Like, it's literally called the horse, and it's like this giant program that every single one of them has, and it like syncs with all of them, and they can like push updates and change stuff, and like, yeah, so they have the most cybernetic of enhancements on top of their base UI.
So, something I think how do I even say this? Gosh, I'm trying to think about the way to convey this. Like, I really wish that Blizzard did more with the base UI to try to make it to where you didn't have all of this garbage going on. Because, okay, I think the best way to describe this is like this. I bet if you turned off all of your add-ons, you would get like pretty decent FPS in most situations. There are so many add-ons that cause like insane FPS drops, and I really wish that like you could play the game without add-ons without just having this insane FPS penalty. But at the same time, you're gonna have a performance loss, which is not really acceptable either.
Yeah, I mean, don't forget, everybody's gonna have to make their UI in 2 weeks, right?
In hardcore,
with the pre-patch.
In hardcore, do you play with add-ons?
So I use a much smaller than retail, but I still have like a handful. Like, I have weak auras, I have Cell.
For what?
I like having the HUD in the middle of my screen, like, so I can see my spells, and sometimes like basically what I want, right? Like, to customize what buffs and debuffs I see.
Okay.
What's like seeing cooldowns in the middle of my screen. There are also like lots of like random, helpful, useful weak auras. Weak aura that, you know, plays an air horn if you're drowning because you fell asleep while you're fishing in your bed. Yeah, but in hardcore, and this is partly, I'm not saying this just because of the no add-ons thing. This is also a classic versus retail thing, but everything loads so much faster. Like I'll literally be in a dungeon, I'll be like, careful guys, like wait a second, I gotta reload, and then 2 seconds later it's already reloaded and I'm in the game. Because I'm used to retail where it like takes 20 seconds to reload sometimes if you're in a dungeon.
People have used add-ons basically since the beginning of WoW. I mean, to that point, Growl's using add-ons even still in hardcore. So if they exist and there's an advantage to using them, they will be used.
Yep.
Right.
So I don't know.
Oh well, I mean, let's just hope that things go in one of the directions. You know, like
I just hope things get better, not worse. It's kind of.
I just hope that we don't end up with a clusterfuck where we still have all of the cybernetic enhancements. Like at least make them not really hard to use and not really hard on the add-on devs, right? Like hopefully they. But I kind of worry that there's gonna be this back and forth battle coming soon where it's like, okay, well Blizzard tries to take back some of these things, right? They see this weak aura package that Northern Sky has, and they start taking back and making private some of the information. That's sort of why I'm a little bit pessimistic and why I'm a little bit worried right now. Is that's what I see.
I mean, this is like the private aura debacle again. This is how this feels.
Yeah.
Have you seen the new targeted spells TTS thing? Zorthus was testing it on a stream.
Yes, I was complaining about it last week, and you guys were like, "Well, there's not that many targeted spells."
Well, they made improvements to it, but like. I know Zeph is making it. Zorthus was trying it. It's just like in my Sarah Caverns, it was like targeted by this. It's just like, oh, how can you listen to this? that would cause my brain so much more harm.
Yeah, it's terrible. That's why I don't like it in the game at all, because using it is an advantage, and listening to it is awful. Like it is so it doesn't feel like you're playing the game. It literally it's kind of like the air horn. No other video game do you just start and then just like an air horn goes off, and then you have targeted by X ability, and it's just like none of that's part of the game. Please.
All
right. What controversial thing do you guys want to discuss next, Growl? Which one of these two controversies? One button rotation or Zorthus's pull on resilient keys?
Oh geez, let's do Zorthus's pull on resilient keys. That was definitely a funny one. I saw that pop up on Twitter. I think Ivan. Oh yeah, Teddles linked it, and I actually commented a picture of me responding.
Yeah.
But here's the thing about resilient keys, right? I think for a majority of people that don't interact heavily with Mythic Plus, if you're anybody who does like 3K ish score, like for the achievements, and then doesn't really play too much M plus, you just do weeklies, just do crests. Resilient keys are like super omega great. And I see no problem with resilient keys to those people, you know, like if you're just somebody who has all-time 12s and you just want to do 12s and you don't want to be in the situation where you D-rank your key and it's 11 and it sucks, whatever. Like for the people who are just in M plus for the gear or for whatever, I think it's fine. But yeah, as you get into higher keys, it gets kind of shitty. I actually didn't see the results of the poll. I voted early when he put it up, and then
I don't know what he's
He had a bunch of like silly questions on Google Doc.
He said resilient key seems like a very controversial topic. I'll probably make a video if there's conclusive data on this. I will say I think the cross section of people who follow Zorthus on Twitter and the people who don't like resilient keys are probably a very close cross section of one another. Admittedly, exactly.
That's why I think that was my thought right away when I saw him doing that poll. Was like, well, I mean, Zorthus is like a high M plus streamer and a Mythic Raid streamer. Like the people that watch him are. I do think he's broadening his audience a little bit. Like he's been making a lot of good like beta type of content. So I wouldn't be surprised at some point in the future this is not true. But for now, I would say a majority of his viewers are like competitive players essentially.
Yeah, I do think the questions were kind of interesting. It's like, do you like resilient keys? It's basically yes, no, don't have an opinion. What key level range did you play? What do you like about resilient keys? Like, what do you think the positives are? I will say, I thought that this poll was maybe there was a little bit of bias, I will say. I think from the
really? I thought it was kind of fair. I
think that there was bias from the way that the questions were asked. So it's like, what do you like about resilient keys? What do you dislike about resilient keys? And then I think that this question is incredibly biased. If there was no resilient keys, which would you rather, right? So that kind of gives you bias, but also at the same time,
why does that give you bias? So basically, the two options are: if there was no resilience, would you rather remove all depletion or just go back to the old system?
Yeah, but there's also not like an open answer. I don't know. There's like it kind of is implying that resilience should be removed. Yeah, I don't know. But like I think that in general, it's like, what do you like about resilient keys? I think that the less homework keys, I mean, I think that this is like almost unequivocally the advantage, right? Is that there's less homework keys. And then, this one is, depending on who you are, easier to pug your own key. Those are probably the two bigger ones, right? I think that this part right here, the gives an option to prog keys, is the issue with resilient keys, more or less. But maybe that's just, it's a hot take. And then the dislike about resilient keys, the note tip boosting stuff, I feel like that's completely irrelevant. Dude, people talk about boosting with resilient keys all the time. I don't think that they could get me to care. Like, I don't think that people could get me to...
I heard it's a big EU thing. I mean, maybe I'm just making this up, but just from what I've heard, it's just something that is just way worse on EU.
Oh, I'm not paying. I'm not paying for it regardless. Like, if anything, Blizzard needs to just remove this shit from LFG. It's not an issue of resilient keys.
Yeah, no, I agree with that actually, 100%.
Like, they'll get
I
to
think
that right
advertising
after
in
they.
LFG. Yeah, sorry.
They'll get to that right after they ban the real gold boosters at the third-party website. Scroll.
Yeah, I mean, that's been like one of the things that I've championed the most is them getting that shit
out of LFG.
To me, I just don't really see an upside.
To what?
Like, I just don't.
Is my Discord lagging?
A lot. No, I think Growl's lagging.
Hold on. One moment.
No, because I'm hearing him cut out a lot too.
Well, GG. Maybe Growl will stop cutting out.
Hello, Test. Yeah, no, my Discord is blowing up. Sorry.
Okay.
Oh, good. What were you saying? Sorry.
Oh, I don't remember. I'm tilted now that my Discord is blowing up.
Okay. Yeah, but yeah, I don't know.
I just hate the advertisers in LFG. I just don't see why. Yeah. Like, I always hear these conspiracies that, like, oh, Blizzard makes so much money from this and the WoW token and that, blah, blah, blah. I just don't believe any of that, and I just, like, don't understand why. Like, I don't know. I guess I had a discussion with somebody about this, and they basically said that I drastically underestimate how hard it is to get rid of them and the actual, like, effort and systems they have in place to stay in LFG and, like, zombie accounts and how fast they can create accounts and all this stuff. I don't buy it. I still don't buy it. I was not convinced, but that was my reasoning. What I was told was, like, it is impossible to get it out and keep them out of LFG, which I don't buy, but
I think there's ways they can limit it. Like, if they put a 1 Mythic Plus rating score, that would, like, all they need to do is reduce the barrier of entry, I think.
You should be required to be a max level character to list anything in LFG, I think.
That would be a good start too. Like, there's bare minimum stuff that I feel like they should be able to do to curb that. But
yeah,
as for the, like, tip boosting stuff, like, the way I see it is it only exists because it works.
Meaning that do people pay for that?
I have to imagine. Why would people think about it from an Avenue standpoint? Why would you otherwise, as a booster, spend God knows how long in LFG not making gold?
Because you're
why
stupid,
would you do that?
Because you're stupid and you think it might work.
I mean, sure.
Well, because you see other people doing it, so you think that there has to be some people that are. I don't know.
I mean, I can't tell you if it's an EU thing. I have no idea on it, but
I don't know.
To me, it only makes sense if people are doing it for a reason. But maybe I'm wrong on that.
This question: if there was no Resil, which would you rather? I would rather them improve resilient keys, right? I don't think that either of these are really, like, good solutions. Remove depletion entirely or old depletion system. Every key can deplete. I mean, if you're making me pick, I guess I'd pick the old depletion system. But, like, I'd rather them just make resilience better. I think that removing depletion entirely has so many other problems that aren't. It's, like, hard to articulate, right?
How would they make the current resilience system better?
I mean, that's really. I don't have, like, a really elegant solution.
Okay, I understand. I was just wondering if you had one. Yeah.
No, I don't have anything like off the top of my head.
I agree with what you're saying. Like, and that's been my goal too. Is not necessarily to say remove resilient, but just, like, we need to think about this and iterate this rather than sit on this because I think it'll become problematic. That's, like, sort of my stance on resilient at least.
Sitting on it's worse than trying to improve it, but they should continue to try to improve it, right?
Right.
I think it's not black and white to me. like you can't just remove depletion entirely.
Yeah.
Removing depletion entirely would have to come with other changes, such as, you have to do a 15 before you can do a 16 type stuff. Like, there's a reason, like, people like point to Fellowship, and it's like, oh, Fellowship does it, there's no depletion. And it's like, well, Fellowship is a completely different leveling system that does not relate to WoW at all. Like, so I don't think the question is exactly fair, because it's not black and white as in, oh, it's remove depletion or go back to the way it was. It's like,
Yeah.
there's a lot of different things that would need to happen for you to remove depletion.
I've seen people say the resilient +1 thing, where whenever
That's
you have your
essentially
resilient,
removing depletion.
yeah, I think that comes with a whole host of problems as well. Where I do think that also comes with a bunch of different problems, where you're gonna have people like doing. Obviously, they're doing higher level dungeons, but I think it will come with it a bunch of. I don't think it's as black. Like Squish said, I don't think it's as black and white as it really makes it seem. I haven't really thought about the best way of articulating it, but there are other problems with giving the resilient +1 that isn't exactly, it's not just a one size fits all solution. And I think that's the issue with resilience. It's like there's no one, if Blizzard did this one small thing, it would make resilience perfect. It's like that's why I don't think it's like an easy thing to answer. Like, what would you do differently? Because it's like, oh, I don't think it's one thing. I think that they would have to like take major swings at like, how do you make the cringe parts of resilient keys, where spamming resilient priory and forcing you to progress the highest level of dungeons, like how do you remove that kind of cringe part of it while keeping the good parts of the less homework keys, and it's easier to pug your own key. Like how do you keep the good parts while removing the really shitty parts of it? Yeah, I don't know. It's a tough thing to really articulate all of the good parts and the bad parts about what's going on with resilient keys. But yeah, I think that Blizzard should continue to try to iterate on them. Growl, what did you think was harder between Priory and Grim Batol?
Ooh, I stopped because I feel like this is a Zorthus question where like he has data on this, but he wants to see what people think. I believe I voted Priory.
I anecdotally think that Grim Batol was harder to play. Like
I think the cope that I had in my brain when I answered this question was from a balance perspective, like just a 24 Grim Batol versus a 24 whatever key.
A 24?
Grim Batol was just I'm just making up a number, man. It was just like strictly, I don't want to say harder, but it was just like, I guess relative to the other keys at that level, it was just more challenging, I guess, or more difficult. But like, yeah, I'm trying to think of how I word this, but it doesn't really make sense. I mean, Priory is like hard. Like
the delta's higher between the two.
To me, it feels like Priory is hard but fair, whereas Grim Batol was not fair, I guess, if that makes sense. Yeah. Like, to do a 24 Grim Batol, it feels like you had to have a lot of things right and get lucky, whereas like Priory, every time you die, it's like, you did this wrong, I did this wrong, you didn't LOS this, we didn't kick this. There's just so many things that you have to do right, whereas Grim Batol is just like, oh, the debuffs or the curses went on the wrong people, or like something weird happened with the pillar that we were tanking the boss on, or we got really unlucky sequencing on the first boss.
The
or like
ads
whatever,
spawns were cooked.
Yeah.
I felt like in Priory, you wipe at specific moments. In Grim Batol, you could wipe to fucking anything. Like my tank got double tank bustered and just got evaporated. Just like, oh, GG, I guess.
Yeah, maybe it's because I didn't tank, but I didn't think Grim Batol was like that crazy. It was just like so much dumb stuff would happen.
Yeah.
I hated Grim Batol from like a 12 perspective, so I think I did that dungeon as few times as possible.
That dungeon was really hard. I think that but both are quite hard. I think they're almost hard in a little bit of different ways, right? Priory requires intense focus, and Grim Batol just like was mechanically, in my opinion, a lot harder, and you could just get screwed by a bunch of BS, kind of like Growl said.
Yeah.
Okay, Growl, you linked this Reddit post. Explain to us what's going on here.
Oh, geez. So the last episode when we were talking about like our takes and the drama events and different things that happened, I had talked about the single button rotation, and we basically talked about how it was a nothing burger. And someone made a post on Reddit that got a lot of upvotes that was essentially saying single button assist made this game fun again. And then a person posting their I believe they were either normal or heroic logs. In the post they said they did normal and heroic. Basically I believe it was somebody who said they played healer and they wanted to try DPS, but they like didn't want to actually learn it, so they just like wanted to get their feet wet a little bit. But because they could use the one button and raid with it, they like had a bunch of fun. Which, to be fair, look, I have some of the most demonic ways that I have fun in my life. I am not shaming anybody if you enjoy the one button rotation. You can do what, this is not what the post is about. I just thought it was funny that, number one, we were basically, I think part of the idea behind the one button rotation is people don't quite believe how good it is, or they don't realize how good it might be. Because he basically has this post and he's like, well, I looked on Wowhead and Wowhead says you lose 25% damage if you use the one button rotation. But I don't play perfect, so I'm not really losing 25% damage. Actually, I'm gaining damage.
I'm gaining 25% damage.
I thought that was I thought that might have been obvious, right? Like when you say 25% damage, what do you think you're like? Do people think their damage number just goes down 25% from what it is right now? Do people think that they're playing perfectly? I'm not sure what the idea is, but and then if you read the posts, the responses, people are like, "Oh wow. Like, I didn't think you could do that. I didn't think the one button rotation is that good." There's also a lot of people, funny enough, like shaming heroic raiders and saying like, this difficulty is trash. You're bad if you play this. Like, don't even, like kind of like weird. Almost like it did turn into a little bit of like an elitist issue. But yeah, I just thought it was a very, very funny post about how like it got swept under the rug and nobody was talking about it. And then as soon as I said that, here comes this Reddit post about, oh, look how good the single button rotation is.
Well, this is why we thought it was going to be a problem to begin with, was because of the elitism, right? Where there's going to be, we thought, obviously it didn't end up working out that way. We thought there was going to be insane social pressure onto people who really don't want to use the one button rotation to use it, because instead of losing 20% damage, they're gaining 25% damage or whatever because they're bad. And I think that it's like, then that creates kind of the argument was always like, that isn't gameplay, right? Is that while you are going through the motions, you've just stripped away a bunch of gameplay from the people who wanted it to just press one button over and over again. Now, the reason that it didn't work out is that most people just want to press the rotation, or at least feel like they're pressing the rotation. But
which is good. To be fair, again, if someone wants to mash one button and be able to play the video game, I have no problem with that.
Yeah.
Like, to me, that's cool. However, I'm worried about people who don't want to press one button, who are worse than this guy, and who are like, oh, wow, now I'm trolling my raid. Like, imagine there's Timmy and Jimmy in a guild, and they both suck, but they're friends, and they have a lot of fun raiding together. And all of a sudden, Timmy now uses the one button rotation, and now he's like beating Jimmy, and now Jimmy's sitting here in his guild feeling like he's trolling. And it's like, that's sort of what I worried about the system. But again, so far, so good, right? Like, people are kind of just like, I don't feel like using it. The reason nobody uses it is because it's not fun. And like, okay, that's exactly how it should be. So I'm kind of just like quietly observing and seeing this. But it's funny that a lot of people didn't realize how good it was. Because again, like the guy posts, what did he say, 72 average on heroic, which isn't like the most impressive accomplishment.
Yeah.
But it's still better than a lot of people, right? Like to get AOTC and to have reasonable looking logs is
he's getting purple and he's getting purple and orange parses with it on heroic, which
he has like a 95 on Soulbinder or whatever.
Yeah,
I think I think the fears are definitely there, but it didn't look like they panned out. People aren't being forced to use it or anything like that, as far as I know, which is fine. So far I think it's doing it. It's there for people who want to use it, and with no downsides. And I don't think I can say anything more than that right now.
I do think if it gets more widely used, then Blizzard needs to like nerf it, but I don't know.
Do they? Okay, like from a developer standpoint, if they treat this as a floor, is that a bad thing? Because one of the things that I know that they've talked about, and part of the add-on discussion, was the delta between the best players and the opposite of the best players.
I think it's because I think the issue is that it's not a floor, right? It's really not the floor. I think that like there are people who have played this game for like 15 or 20 years that would get handily out DPS by the one button rotation. And seeing it as a floor just means that you then clump all of the people that were below that into using the one button rotation. And to get out of using the one button rotation, you say, oh, you have to read a guide and do a lot of practice, because actually out DPSing the one button rotation is pretty hard.
If you haven't played the spec. Yeah, like if you're somebody who's fluent with the spec and you've played it for a long time, it's not difficult, but like let's say you compare two people who are either not great WoW players or just new to the spec, right? You're gonna slam the other guy if you're using the
you said
rotation.
Fluent with the spec. The problem that I have with that is like, okay, it's like the difference between knowing English and being an English professor at a university, right? Like,
right? Okay. There's a lot of degrees to that. That was a loaded statement.
Yeah.
But like, you know, back in Legion when they did the original Mage Tower, I remember doing like every spec Mage Tower because I wanted the artifact appearance before they went away. If one button like rotation existed, I probably would have used it for a lot of specs. Because they're alts that I don't give a crap about playing or learning the real rotation for, and it's probably good enough for the Mage Tower.
Yeah,
and I think from that angle, I think it's perfectly fine. I would use it.
Yeah. I don't know. It's tough. I mean, obviously, it doesn't really affect.
I mean, sort
any
of.
Us.
I mean, on the one hand, what if you had a button that would just blow up the whole Mage Tower instantly? Would you press that?
Yes.
Right. So
there's a difference between like there's a difference between rotation, like people who are interested in learning a rotation versus people who are interested in doing the mechanics. I know quite a few people.
Is there? Okay, so like it's like getting a mount whenever it's it's like getting a mount whenever it's current from Mythic versus going back 3 expansions later and blowing up the raid, right? To get them out.
I don't know that is what I'm talking about here. Like, I know people who are not interested in learning a class rotation. That is not that is so boring to them. They have zero interest in that, but they want to play with their friends and do the raid mechanics, which they find interesting. Coordinating with friends, working together, doing raid mechanics. And I think that is a very, very good case of the one button rotation for people that just want to log in and just,
I agree
dodge
with that.
the stuff on the floor.
No, I fully agree with that.
I agree with that.
I think that if you want to use it, that is. However, I think the whole like Mage Tower, I'm using this to get an achievement, that's a little different.
It's like
I would do it.
It's like the
I know you would, but you would also probably use the blow up the Mage Tower button. Well, but then that would defeat the purpose of the Mage Tower, which then puts into question the one. You get what I'm saying.
It's kind of like a bot. Like, people in the past use rotation bots to do their rotation for them. It's like, would you download one of those? Like, where do we draw the line here?
Well, Blizzard draws the line, and they drew it at the one button rotation.
Yeah,
because they put it in the game.
For me, like, challenge is part of the game, and pushing a blow up the Mage Tower button doesn't actually have any challenge.
Yeah,
but there are certain specs which I do not care for whatsoever, like rogue specs, for example. Like, not for me. And if I wanted the thing on them, like, sure, you could argue you should work for it, but if it's in the game and it's good, like, who am I to say no while still being able to use, rogue defensives?
It is a philosophical question, right? Like, it's not if it's in the game, like, please God, just use it. But like, it's more of a philosophical question of like, should this have been in the game to begin with?
Oh, I completely agree. It's where you personally draw the line of what is skill.
What is playing the game? I think is like a better. It's not even necessarily skill. It's like what actually is playing the game, and I view like the rotation as part of like the one of the fundamentals of actually playing the game is like doing your rotation, which is why most people don't use the one button rotation, right? Is because most people also view doing your rotation as part of playing the game. But then there's, and I think it ended up being fear mongering. We talked about it a little bit last episode where we were worried that people were going to feel required to use the one button rotation and that didn't want to. But as it turns out, that's not true.
Yeah, I mean, there are some games out there which just are very simple. You have an attack and you have a block or something like that. And most of the entire game is exactly like that. Very, very basic buttons. There's no rotation. You have a jump, a block, and a dash or something, an attack. And that's it. And that's enough for people. And the rest of the game comes down to mechanics, dealing with different types of enemies, boss, that kind of thing. So it's going to vary from person to person. But in the current state, I can't complain about the one button rotation.
Yeah, I mean,
I like how we're like not sure what we talk about this week, and then we're like, let's just put down the usual, just add-ons, resilient keys, one button rotation.
well,
Okay,
I
you
mean,
want to talk about delves? You
no.
want to talk about delves?
Are they doing anything with
Augmentation evoker?
delves?
Augmentation evoker?
I could bitch about that
We can do
stuff.
the greatest hits.
I did just make a video talking about the most overpowered specs in Mythic Plus history. Augmentation
shit.
Ogre did
up.
make a cameo. Yeah, this week I kind of had an idea, like, what about talking about how to prep for the new expansion and kind of what goes into prepping for it, things maybe to think about whenever you're looking to jump into some of the new content. Unless you guys have a better idea for stuff to talk about.
Sounds good to me.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I think UI stuff is the most important, but
Yeah, UI stuff is actually interesting. Okay, so I was going to say start with research, but I think that maybe talking about setting up your UI is going to be pretty interesting because
Ooh, I
Yeah,
actually
'cause-
disagree with both of you. I think the
Oh.
most important question is what class are you going to make? I feel like for a huge majority of people, that's number one.
I have a different one. I think that actually setting goals for like what do you want out of the game is going to be more important than figuring out your main, because if you don't care, right, like about, you know, if in my opinion, like if you don't care about like fodder rerolling or anything like that, that almost like changes the discussion about what you're going to main a little bit.
I think so. Okay, we can talk about goals. I think goals are very important and it helps you structure things. But
Yeah.
I also think when it comes to a game that's fun, right? If you are trying to like get good at lifting weights or something, you're trying to get good at tennis, I think setting a really, really high goal and aiming for the stars and landing on the moon is fine. I think with games, it should almost be the opposite. I think you should think in the very short term and just think of a very small goal
Okay.
and then just do it and then like gauge how you're having fun, right? Like if you're somebody who's never played WoW before or like someone who's like played very casually, I'm going to be a cutting edge raider might be a little tough of a goal. Maybe it should be like, I'm going to kill one mythic boss. I'm going to get into a guild that can kill a mythic
I'm going to
boss.
level
I'm gonna
5 characters.
Right, yeah. And then, but ideally, the way that it should work is you get hooked, right? You say, oh, I've never raided before. I'm going to get AOTC. And then you get AOTC and you're like, oh man, look at that mythic loot. Okay, now my next goal, I'm going to do a mythic boss. But I do think it is important to kind of think about what you want to do in the game and set some goals and kind of like point yourself in a direction, because that kind of gives you an idea of like what you're getting yourself into.
Yeah, and I think that like with setting goals, it's just about like figuring out what you want to do with the expansion. If you want to take it piece by piece, kind of like Growl said, I think that's how most people play video games just in general, where they just, you know, their goal is to log in and have fun, and they don't really care like about the minutia of it all. Their only goal really is to just log in and have a good time, and then they, you know, it's kind of like whenever Day 9 was flying around Dornegal and he went to go solo the
oh
dungeon.
my god,
Right? That's just peak. Like he doesn't have like any major goals, and I think that like, you know, the goals may vary. Some people might be going for cutting edge. Some people might try to go and get the rank 1 Mythic Plus titles. Some people might go and try to get the 3KO mount or achievement or AOTC or whatever, right? But I think that like figuring out how you want to play the game also is like almost step one. And for some people, figuring out even if you want to play the game maybe is step one. Seen a lot of people who are like, maybe I don't play this expansion. It's kind of interesting. Have you guys actually experienced that a little bit more? More commonly, I would say, coming into Midnight than other expansions, where your friend groups, maybe some people that normally play every expansion are less ecstatic?
I feel like from my friend group, people are a little bit pessimistic, but also they're like that from every expansion. Every expansion, these people are like making fun of the next WoW thing or blah, blah, blah. But I think a lot of them end up playing anyway. I've noticed from me personally that I've been a little less excited, but also I've done this now a couple times, you know, like Shadowlands. It was my first WoW expansion, basically, right? So that was like the Burning Crusade for other people, where you're like, you know, prepping stuff and leveling guys for it and stuff. Like that's what I was doing for Shadowlands. And now at this point, I've kind of been through the drill.
Yeah.
And I'm just kind of like, well, let's see how it goes. I would say I'm a little bit surprised with like the lack of beta activity and like the people who are like trying to do keys on there. That's probably to me the lower activity, but I don't know if it's more doomer than average right now for me.
This kind of feels like WoD almost for me. Like, I don't know if you remember this squishy where going into Legion, like nobody was doing anything on the Legion beta or anything like that. And it was even that Legion ended up being bad. Legion ended up being one of the better expansions, one of the best expansions even. but it was like
Damn, that's good. I like that you say that.
That's the state of war with it is kind of fucking dead, but the state of midnight might be really good.
I definitely noticed as well. Like the hype on it, what people are talking about right now is like not much. It's kind of content creators are kind of quiet right now, which is never really a good sign.
I met somebody IRL who recognized me the other day, and he apparently hadn't been playing the game for a little bit, and he asked me if Blizzard was killing the game by the removal of add-ons. I feel like that is just the rhetoric that is going around basically everywhere with the game, is that the add-ons are getting nuked and that the game is going to be terrible because of the add-on changes.
I'm like honestly surprised, or going to be surprised at how many people are gonna be shocked when add-ons are back in like just as big of a force as before.
Yeah.
Like, but I there's just nothing new. Like Apex talents, it's
Yeah.
like who is excited for Apex talents? Like they're worse than hero talents. At least hero talents have some really cool ones. And what else is there? Devour, dude. For a new spec, that spec sounds dead.
Really?
AUG at least had like, I mean, have you noticed it? Who have you heard talk about Devour? Social media, like.
I think it's just been a little bit a while. Like it's too far away from the announcement and the release. Like, dude,
It comes out in 2 weeks.
Maybe to me, when Devour was released, there were like 4 people in our guild Discord who renamed themselves.
Nobody was bat-chesting about Havoc
Devour
either.
main.
No, nobody was stoked about Havoc whenever it was releasing, and then people played it during the pre-patch, and that spec was fucking sick. But
my prediction with Devour, I think, who knows how it'll be at a high end. I think it'll be like okay. From what I saw, though, I think a lot of people might play it, but it seems like a really punishing spec. From what I understand, like a lot of it is like getting those big collapsing stars, and if you're somebody who like cancels a cast or like doesn't manage your resources perfectly, you lose like a huge portion of your damage. To me, it seemed like kind of a weird way to design a spec, given that their like current philosophy, in that it's simple and reasonable, like it makes sense the way it plays, but it's very, very punishing when you mess stuff up around those like stars and like the whatever the metamorphosis mode is or whatever. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I don't notice any less hype with it. Me personally, when Evoker came out, it was a new healer spec, so I was really excited about that. There's no world where I play Devour Demon Hunter, so I don't really care about it. It's kind of like
that could be a really good YouTube video series, though.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, I think that like setting goals and then figuring out your main, kind of like Growl said, those are probably some of the most important stuff. I also think if you're like considering fodder rerolling or like changing roles, getting your character ready, I think is like a really good step one.
Yeah, I think for me, for goals, like I don't like. What are your personal goals? Out of curiosity.
Which one, me?
Yeah.
For next expansion, a little bit of everything. I'm raiding again, so get cutting edge with my guild, I think, is one of my goals. I mean, we're just gonna kind of we don't really like set our guild goals. Like we don't really have goals. It's just like do the best we can given like just given how much we raid. It's not like oh yeah, we want to get whatever rank. So like for me, it's like perform as well as I can in raid. I'm gonna be playing Balanced Root again, so I already kind of know what's going on with that. But depending on how I'm feeling about the Mythic Plus season, I'm not necessarily committed to anything. But I don't really have like a squad or any group to play with. If Moonkin's good in Mythic Plus, I'll play that. If Moonkin's bad, I'll consider rerolling depending on how I feel about the season. But I don't really have any. Like I normally get title or get close to title depending on how I feel about the season. And I know that AUG is obviously good right now, and so like been considering playing that. But I don't think I have any like super concrete goals or things that I'm like committed to. Beyond that, it's like I have content creation related goals, but those almost they're like tangentially related to what I want to do with just like my long-term goals for the game. But it's like play a new character, maybe do another subathon thing, playing like a melee DPS or something.
I just want to get
Yeah.
streaming again. I think if I ended up and I know I keep saying that, but if I started playing again, like I might have a goal of like, doing something big and like pushing keys or whatever. But for the most part, I just, want to get back into the groove. But I think Midnight coming out, or like at least the pre-patch or whatever, like those sorts of events will be an easy catalyst to be like, okay, finally we have stuff to talk about.
Yeah, cast the race world first. That's obviously another goal. Whatever's going on with MDI TGP, do that again as well.
What about you, Squishy?
I'm actually really hyped for the Mythic Plus season. Like, there is a non-zero chance that I might push a little further. I'm still scarred from when Tettles pulled me to tank for him in like the Shrine of the Storm days.
Dog, that's been like 8 years.
Yeah, exactly. I'm still traumatized, man.
Well, yeah, Shrine of the Storm was bad, so.
That was the sheer days too of Vengeance DH. Remember that?
Oh my god!
Did nothing but spam sheer.
You just bashed sheer. That was good. Well, all you prayed for was Twilight Death procs. That was good.
But yeah, like I think on Mythic Plus front, like I'm really excited for that after doing the dungeons. Raid, we'll see. I think there are some fundamental problems with that, but
interesting.
Mythic Plus,
we'll have to see about Raid.
Mythic Plus and Raid are weird to me because like the content itself is obviously important in some aspects, but it's arguably less important. I mean, Growl and I've talked about this before. It's arguably less important for me than like, are a bunch of people playing? Like season 1 of The War Within sucked. Like that season like objectively sucked, but all my friends were playing, so I played a lot, right? And it's kind of like the same thing. It's like, the dungeons could be bad, but I could still have fun.
Yeah, exactly.
We rated the dungeons, and they were ranked quite low for season 1 of The War Within.
Yeah. What's funny is I played much more in season 1 than I did in season 3, and I said that all the season 3 dungeons were like almost entirely much better than the season 1, which is interesting. And I wonder, like, let's say I would have played season 1 less, would I have thought the same thing? Let's say if I would have played season 3 a ton, would I have said the same thing? I kind of wonder, maybe because I played the game less super seriously this season, I was like had a good view of the dungeons.
Yeah, like I think that for me though, like I don't have a team or like any weird like aspirational goals for Mythic Plus, so I'm just gonna like. I don't think that most people would call this pugging, but like I never really have a consistent group to play with in terms of like groups. So I just kind of play whenever I get invited, more or less. Or I end up making my own group most of the time, actually, is what I end up doing. Is I end up making my own group. But but that always comes with a bunch of like limitations of like I don't really know what I'm doing with the season at the very beginning of the season. Also,
I honestly think for me,
where the hell are the tanks? Somebody's got to find some people to tank.
Man, maybe that needs to be our goals. Just all 3 of us just become tanks.
No, I had that one time I started tanking. That shit is never happening again. That was terrible.
We were talking about social credit and how like social credit and Mythic Plus should be like you just have to put your time.
God. Tanking is a tough spot. Blizzard will one day learn.
That's just you putting in your dues.
Yeah.
I don't think Blizzard will learn. I actually don't think there's a solve.
I think there's a fundamental problem with them thinking they know what is going to solve the tanking problem, and it's not addressing the actual issue.
I don't think it's fixable.
I think there's ways to help it, and they're not doing it right now.
Okay, that's you know what? I'll agree. I'll concede with that. Like the issue with tank is like the role is too impactful, right? And it's too punishing whenever you make a mistake. But I don't know
I agree with you there.
I don't know how you fix that, right?
More damage. Just give them more damage.
I have a tank question for our viewers, by the way. I mean, if you guys want to chime in, you can. I've been playing a little bit of Mop Classic on and off. Now, granted, it's hard to compare because Mop Classic doesn't have M+. To me, I hear a lot about how much they liked tanking in M+, talking about Vengeance and stuff. From my perspective, tanking seems much more impactful and much more punishing in Mop than it does in retail. So I'm interested in people who played Mop or play it currently, what they think about tanking, because it, like, to me, it's, I don't know if that's the direction that I would want WoW to go with, like, you take a ton of damage and you're, like, encouraged to, like, greed really hard for Vengeance and stuff. Like, I don't know. I don't see that being a good state of the game for tanking. I'm kind of thinking that maybe people remember like the end of the expansion Siege of Orgrimmar Farm when they're like turbo mega geared and they're just blasting, but they don't quite remember what it's like to like actually prog the raids or do the dungeons when you're under geared. But tanking seems hard in MoP.
It might be a perception thing because, tanking has a lot of risk for not a lot of reward, right? Like tanking is yeah, it's binary. You either live and your group does it, you do your job and you live and your group succeeds, or you die and your group fails. But like, at least in MoP, you have that same risk, but you actually get some reward out of it too, of big fucking DPS. And that at least, like, that hits the perception and the dopamine filters, right? Of like, I'm taking on this role, I'm doing my job, and I'm doing something for my group. Like, it's a noticeable thing. So, like, it might just be a complete perception thing, but it works.
That was my issue with tanking, was that, like, 100% of the reward of tanking was contingent on timing the dungeon. And it was just like, well, I'm working 10 times harder than I would otherwise have to on any other role, and then my reward's the same as these schmoes that I've carried? Like, I don't know.
Yeah. Like, and that's the thing, is there's a fundamental imbalance between the risk and the reward of tanking.
Yeah.
And until they solve that through any different means, like, it would be stupid. I don't expect them to do this, but imagine if tanks always got a piece of loot at the end of Mythic Plus run. You'd suddenly have a fuck ton of tanks. That would solve the reward issue.
Tanks get double loot in M+. That's so funny.
I mean, tell me that would not solve the issue, though.
Double
in a 10, maybe?
In a 10, sure, but that's where the majority of the issues occur. Right? Like, there are ways to solve this for the mid to low end. I'm sorry, the high end's kind of fucked, I think. Yeah. But I think there are absolutely ways that they can do this to make tanking more appealing. They just haven't done anything about it. Again.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. We veered heavily off topic.
Yeah, so figure out your main. You gotta figure out your main. Then, what do you guys think? Like, set up your UI.
Oh wait, no, we gotta talk about figuring out your main. We didn't talk about figuring out your main. That was talking about goals.
Yeah.
So here's what I think about figuring out your main. This is something that you have to get in your head in World of Warcraft. So there's two things that you would decide that you want, right? Either you want to pick a character that's the meta character that everybody needs, that's really strong and really powerful, or you want to pick a character that you think is like cool, that you vibe with, right? And everybody wants both, right? You want to like see on a chart, how good is this character and how much do I vibe with it, and try and find like the perfect balance where you get both. Unfortunately, when it comes to WoW, there's so much like weird tuning and unexpected things that happen that if you want to pick a character that's strong, you just have to wait and you have to be flexible. Like if you're somebody who's like going into the next expansion, you just don't know what's going to be good and what's not. You can look at a tier list, you can listen to people, you can try, but ultimately, if the most important thing to you is to play a character that's strong and needed and that people need in groups, you just have to wait and see how things play out and be willing to reroll. Rerolling is generally very, very easy in WoW. It's much different than other MMOs. It's not like if you play one character for 100 hours, it's going to take you 100 more hours to get back on your ult to that next guy. That's just not how the math works out. So ultimately, I would say just pick something that's cool and completely ignore any talk about what's good or what's meta or anything. And then if you run into a point where you're enjoying the game and that's holding you back, then switch. And I'm like such a strong believer in that. And I think a lot of people will have a much better time in the game if they do that, because I think a lot of people either A, pick something because it's good and they don't vibe with it, and then they end up just like on another whatever FOTM spec and not have fun, or they get it in their head that their character is going to be good, and then once they run into problems, they don't want to reroll. Even though being FOTM is very important to them, when they're 2 months or they're 2 weeks into the expansion, and they're like, damn, there's a lot of people playing my class and it's not really that popular, and everyone needs XY class. Yeah. And they're just like, well, I'm committed, I'm not making that. And that's fine, there's nothing wrong with that, unless playing the most popular class is very important to you. And if you want to play a very desired class, yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, I do think there's a lot of people who are like 50-50 on like one or two classes. and they want to do research in advance to see like which one of those two is better, or is like one of them like noticeably better, where it's like, okay,
That's fair.
This
That's
gonna be
fair.
a bit of a better pick, right? Like say you enjoy, you know, mage and, you know, warlock, and you're trying to pick between, well, which one's gonna be better? It's always mage.
Well,
but...
I would highly encourage you, especially now, like if you're somebody who hasn't played WoW in a while. WoW has become very, very alt friendly. I understand that not everyone has tons of time, but like doing what you can to keep the other character in striking distance so that you can like decide to switch if you want to. Like, let's say you're somebody who's like, oh, I want to play a caster, so maybe mage or warlock. Then you decide mage, then warlock ends up being OP. Like just putting a little bit of your time into your warlock each week and just like, you know, first couple weeks making sure you catch it up to max level, then, you know, making sure you get some dungeon gear.
Yeah.
Like, getting to that point will make rerolling so much easier. And who knows, like you might decide, hey, actually warlock owns, like, not, I'm glad I'm maintaining this, I just want to play it.
Nothing
like,
matters until turbo boost anyways.
Yeah.
That's a good one. I think just to kind of echo what you guys were saying earlier, like I find that people playing what they want to a lot of the times, very similar to the one button rotation, will just end up to them playing better. And just playing better than if they had played a you know, flavor of the month class and are swapping to it type thing.
I mean, that's what I'm doing with raid. I mean, I'm gonna raid on my Moonkin, and you know, Moonkin might be good or bad in raid. I don't really know. It'll probably be
Exactly.
fine.
You're like either way, you know your key bindings better. You know your defensives. You know know the little things like that will help you.
And then if I care to do Mythic Plus on something that's fought, I'll level the character and gear it, right? Like I said, like you have a lot of time at the beginning of the expansion. I'll probably have like a good read on a couple of specs that are going to be pretty decent. You know, say Shaman and like Aug Evoker are good things I've played, or you know, Warlock or whatever. I'll level like a couple of characters that I think could be interesting to play. Because you know, you got like, what do we have, like 3 weeks or something at the very beginning of the expansion?
Yeah,
I think
2.5.
Yeah.
When it comes to raid, I think picking a class that you vibe with is more important. Raid balance in general, I would say, is just getting better and better and better. And once you sort of find a guild or like a group that you fit snugly with, then you just are sort of there. Whereas it's a lot harder to get that in Mythic Plus, it seems like. So I think if you're raiding especially, I wouldn't really worry about what's good. I would just kind of just pick something that you think is cool or that you would want to play. Because ultimately, like, you know, it's not like you're gonna have to find groups every single week for that. And like in general, rating finding group just is like, you know, are you qualified? Can you join? There's not really there's much less class discrepancy in raid than there is in dungeons.
I mean, I think in raid as well. I don't know if you guys play like this. I literally just kind of I don't say get told what to play, but like historically, I've been told what to play. Now
Right. If you have a guild or you have a group of friends, fitting in with what they're playing is also good, right? Like if you, well, that's if you want to, right? I'm not necessarily saying you have to, but you know, like if you're in a guild, just knowing that like, hey, I'm the guild's X, that makes it much more simple because you know you're gonna have a spot, you're gonna be in their roster, like they're gonna need you for.
Oh, I was the guild's moon kid this tier. I was here for relief.
Yeah, but I mean, even then though, right? Like you played a class that most people would consider dog shit, and it was still probably fine for the most part, right?
You know, and then I played Ellie Sharp on a Dimension. That's how it was.
Yeah, I mean, see, there you go. Like, see, but that's how it works, right? Like, granted, will everybody have the time to gear up a character that's strong enough to kill Mythic Dimensius for a Hall of Fame guild? No, right? But eventually, you'll be able to gear it up. You know, by the time Turbo Boost hits, like you don't have to do that extreme.
I just geared the Ellie Shaman because I was bored, and then we were starting Dimensius, and it was like, well, this shaman's, you know, geared enough. Yep. Like it could get brought. Like, you don't have to be, like... Yeah. I mean, my Moonkin wasn't getting prioed for loot either. Like, my Moonkin was also not that good.
Prioed for loot. You retail players, you don't know what that's like. In Classic, when 2 pieces of loot drop off a boss, when you have no weekly vault or crest upgrades or anything.
Well,
you're lucky to get 1 item from the raid each week.
The difference in prioed for loot in modern raid is, like, 3 or 4 item levels, right? We're talking about... and crest savings and shit like that. Yeah. Okay, anything else related towards figuring out your main?
No, that was basically my rant. Is just play what you want, and then if you care about what's good, then be willing to reroll.
Yeah, level a bunch of guys if you want. You got plenty of time. What else are you going to be doing? So, okay. Then, prepping for a new expansion, I think research is the one that actually is... People understand that you need to do research, but I don't know if people necessarily know how to do research for the new expansion. I mean, Squishy, what do you think some of the key, like the most, like the easiest ways, I guess, to do research for the new expansion even happens?
Honestly, people want the easy solution to this, and I don't know there is a really easy solution to this.
Yeah.
Because it just depends what you're looking for. In this case, we have so much time for leveling that you probably don't need to optimize your leveling path. You probably also don't need to optimize your gearing before the season starts, because this gear is most of the time pretty worthless, despite everybody fiending for it in the 2 weeks before the raid, Stuff like super rares. I remember everybody fiending for that, and it was, for what, 6 eye levels?
There
That
was
got
the
replaced pretty
Hallow
easily,
Follow
so...
Wrathy reputation grinds, too. God, that shit was terrible.
Oh, that wasn't super rares, that was Dragonflight.
Yeah.
This was dirt farming for Valor Stones. That's what
the
it was,
wax.
dirt farming.
You mean the wax?
Yes, yeah,
That
the
got
dirt
nerfed?
farming.
Yeah.
Yep.
So,
I think this time around, research is mostly just going to come down to, honestly, I believe Mythic Plus a lot more. There's a lot of gotcha moments in this Mythic Plus that you either know or you don't know.
mm-hmm.
And if you don't know, you probably die to it. Then you say, okay, now I understand, and then you won't screw it up again.
Okay.
And I think knowing those things, even just watching a single run through of, people that have played beta, Terrathal, Zorthis, Tettles, Growlithe streams, like
Out of the stream.
Yoda, knowing these boss mechanics, there's usually just one mechanic that you need to know, and once you know the mechanic, you're good to go. And so it's not too hard just watching one quick playthrough on 2x speed until they get to the boss. You're probably good to go from there.
I guess there is kind of an interesting question about Mythic Plus specifically on actually learning the dungeons, on doing the research beforehand. It's kind of this question about, especially with Mythic Plus and Raid, do you need to do the research? Because taking time, kind of like Squishy said, to look through mechanics and whatnot, while useful, it's never going to be a bad thing. It is a more hardcore thing to do. And it might be just in your best interest to just play, have fun, and not really worry too much about the mechanics, and you'll learn the mechanics over time. So I think also just kind of assessing where you're at is kind of important. Whereas if you're trying to push for high level dungeons early on, or you kind of feel like you don't want to be a burden to any of your groups, obviously doing research beforehand is valuable. It's going to be one of those things. Kind of World of Warcraft is a game where players spend a lot of time grinding and playing and very little time actually allocating any time to doing research, where the research actually could help them in a lot of areas that they don't really test out or try.
I think for a concern for a lot of people is the idea of staying ahead of the herd. This would mostly be true with dungeon groups, but kind of applies everywhere in games. Is just, and ultimately that just comes down to putting a little bit more work in than the average person would, which sounds annoying, right? It's hey, I'm playing a new World of Warcraft expansion. I'm trying to have fun. Why am I putting in work? But again, it's if that's what you want to do, if you want to be ahead of the herd and be playing with the slightly better players and having, challenging yourself early in the season, you do kind of have to look up, hey, what are these dungeons? What are some of the harder bosses? What are these mechanics I'm going to need to know? Is that something that's required? No. Is that something that you need to do to accomplish anything in WoW? No. But if you're somebody who really cares about, okay, I really need to get my 12 done in the first week to get that extra crest save, or I don't want to have to deal with lower keys, I want to be grinding for gilded crests right away, then maybe you do have to try and figure out some dungeons on beta and make sure you're putting in time learning your characters so that your early key runs are successful. And I think that there's something to be said for that too. The
Yeah.
idea of staying ahead of the herd, like it definitely makes your life easier if you are a solo only player, right? Like if you have people to play with, you don't care nearly as much. But if you're somebody who's just out on the street slumming it in pugs, it's definitely true that the sweat lord idiots like us are going to be just slamming keys immediately day one, day two, and we're going to be up. We're not going to be doing fours on day one. And so the subsection of people that are in doing, threes and fours on day one or two, it's just going to be a lower quality player pool on average, and you're going to have a lower success rate in the keys, which again, nothing wrong with it, but it is what it is.
I do think that one of the bigger things is actually playing with intention to learn. It's kind of like what Evade said all those episodes ago, where every single time you do a dungeon, you don't have to be perfect the first time, but you should, every single time you see something go wrong, trying to understand and learn why things went wrong is very valuable. And I think that like doing things like recording your own runs, especially early on, so you can watch back and try to understand like what the mechanics are, like what went wrong or why these things happened. It can actually be super valuable. And then on top of that as well, I think having, at least for me, like MDT is normally very valuable. People use it mostly for routes, but I really like it for looking at and reading spells and spell tooltips to try to understand like what all the mobs do. Because I think trying to figure out like what the hell the mobs are doing a lot of the time is one of the hardest parts of doing Mythic Plus.
Yeah. I think there's also going to be content creators out there like Tettles who are going to release, great videos on here's what you need to know about, about these dungeons. And that will be a great resource for you.
Yeah, I do think that like it's still hard to like understand like what's happening in all the dungeons, even
I agree.
Whenever you watch a video.
I agree. Like this goes back to what I said at the beginning of people want the very quick version of how to not wipe the group and stuff like that. Yeah. But a big thing is failure should be okay because failure is how you learn.
Mm-hmm.
And failure is going to happen. So yeah.
There's one thing I want to add. It's a little bit off topic, but I think it's very much in the preparation / like research / like before category is find people to play with. Like World of Warcraft is infinitely more fun if you have people to play with. So like if literally the most important thing you could do right now for having fun and having success in Midnight is go down your friends list of people that play WoW, especially those that you haven't talked to. Be like, yo, are you playing? And if you're somebody who like doesn't have anybody to play with or level with or do dungeons with, like, yo, you want to grind dungeons, you want to, do stuff, or maybe like during the pre-patch week, see who is playing and be like, yo, what are you doing after work on Tuesday when the patch comes out and M+ comes out? Like, you want to grind or whatever? Like, being social and networking and finding people to play with like right away is going to help like not only make the game more fun, but also you're just going to have more success like playing with the same people again and again. Like, if you go in, I feel like a lot of people have this problem where they're like, hey, WoW kind of sounds fun, and they play the new WoW expansion, but they don't necessarily like talk to many people or have a guild set up. And then you log in and it's like, well, you do have some people on your friends list, but you haven't talked to them in a while. You don't really have a guild. And then it's like, you're kind of just pugging. And then the game just isn't really that fun when you're in that situation, It's just much less fun, and then you end up kind of like having a lot less fun a month in and burning out and quitting. And there's nothing wrong with that gameplay loop of just checking out the expansion and seeing what's going on, but there's a lot more to WoW if you find yourself in a guild or doing keys with people. And so I think that's something good that you can do. Is like honestly one of the best things that you can do to prep for the next expansion, just because there's so little you can do, is like prep your friends network, right? Like hit up some of your WoW buds that you haven't talked to since the start of War Within and see if you can find a guild. And if you don't have any of those, who knows, maybe logging in right now and playing with some of the few people that are playing right now, they might, appreciate finding someone that they can game with, because all their friends are probably offline playing classic hardcore and TFT.
That's why that's actually why I really enjoy being in a guild, is because it's, I would say forced socialization, but it's like, it is I don't want to say required friend group, but it's people who are coming together for a common goal. And so it's people that you have things in common with that you are just inherently going to relate to more and more. And those are one of the things that, like, I know that guilds are less common, but it is one of those things that I wish was a bit more frequent for a lot of people, is that they are still in a guild and they have the network of people. Because I feel like the people who are like the solo player endeavors, that's just been becoming more and more common. And it's like, It's tough to find and socialize in WoW in 2026.
Yeah.
Are there any large changes to how Mythic Plus works? I mean, obviously, we no longer have cybernetic enhancements from like weak aura packs that tell you when to defensive and whatnot. I do think that that's actually going to make learning dungeons a little bit more difficult. There's been some kick lockout changes. The dungeon pacing is a little bit slower. Any other like large changes to how Mythic Plus works?
Nothing major. Like I think it's just when it comes to M Plus and Raid, a lot of it's just the same old, same old.
Okay.
You know, like learn the mechanics. I mean, for me, one thing that helps me when I was a little bit more casual is basically I made a little like sheet, and eventually I just stole one from Reddit that someone else made of like a one-line summary of every boss in the dungeon, and maybe like 1 or 2 notes on what are the hard parts are. You know, like just see like, okay, this is the boss where you got to soak the beams, and this is the boss where you got to make sure the phoenixes don't stack on top of each other. You know, and then that way when you're doing the dungeons, you sort of like already know what to expect before you go into each boss. And then you can kind of do the same thing for the raids too. And then just having like a basic, you know, you don't have to like go on the PTR or the beta and do the dungeons or anything. And you'll get to experience them in the early weeks doing the like whatever the difficulty is, normal or heroic or whatever. And especially if you know already what's coming in Mythic, you can kind of like see it in your head. You know, like for me at least, I'm much more of like a how would you say, like a tactile learner. Like I can't just watch a video and all of a sudden know. I have to just be in the fight. But once I'm in the fight, I just very rapidly start to understand how things work. And so if you like kind of remember and think about, okay, what are the Mythic mechanics, what's going on in this fight, like even if stuff doesn't kill you, you kind of see like, oh man, we just rezzed 4 phoenixes and this would be really bad in Mythic, and this is what I got to do, or this is how I got to tank it, and just kind of like thinking ahead of time on the dungeons while you're doing them, either leveling or just like gearing in heroic.
Dude, I wish I don't know. Do we know anything about M0s, Squishy?
They release the heroic week.
But Mythic
2
Plus
weeks after launch.
But so Mythic Plus is not out.
Mythic Plus is the week after.
Okay.
Yeah, Mythic Plus is after.
M0s, I mean, obviously they're not going to be the best thing for gearing that week. But, you know, I actually think that doing M0s is probably pretty good just to help familiarize yourself with like the dungeon layouts and how the dungeons feel, kind of like what Growl was saying.
Yep.
I mean, it's not bad. Keep in mind, again, like if you're somebody who's in a Hall of Fame guild, obviously you don't care as much about M0s, but if you're wanting to pug the raid, going into the raid frame 1 on Tuesday when it comes out is probably going to be miserable for most people who are pugging. So spending your time and going through all the M0s and actually getting the small gear upgrades that you can get, and then kind of stepping into normal, and that's going to be really, really good as well.
Remember,
I think for most people, they will do M0s.
Everybody's going to make mistakes, and even professional gamers like Zorthus, who stream 365 days a year, occasionally get silenced by the vow of silence here. So yeah, it can happen to everybody.
Too.
I will say, this fight, I've seen a number of people just trip on a swirly because this pink swirly, or circle that spawns around you, and then a swirly spawns under you that is also a pink circle, you just don't see it because they're the same color.
Yeah, that's like something that actually mechanically bothers me, is when there's circles.
Yeah, like
when I have a circle on me in a fight with swirlies, I can't quite explain it. In my head, it feels unfair. I know that's just like a noob response to it, but whenever this fight completely owned me, because it's like, you kind of, I don't know, it's hard because you're not always looking at your character, right? You're looking at your peripheral, so like, you see, okay, I have a circle on me, and then you realize, okay, this is just the mechanic. It's not a, you know what I mean? Like, it's
the
so
first pull
tough.
of Cinderbrew Meadery. That pull was like that for me. High level wise, are there significant things that are changing? Obviously, gear. They're going to do a little bit crest stair stepping stuff that we've seen from data mining, but I don't think they've actually even confirmed that. So I don't know if that's like 100% guaranteed.
So when it comes to gear and crests and like crafts and all that,
yeah.
First, I would say, if you're somebody who like doesn't want to troll but doesn't care that much, you shouldn't care at all. Almost all of the min-max stuff that people do is so ridiculous and matters so little that you're not going to regret it, and you should just play how you want to play. If, unfortunately, you're like every single WoW player that wants to roleplay as a world first raider and needs every single item level advantage they can get on every piece, the best advice that I would give you is you got to push back the dopamine. Like, I know you want to craft that weapon. I know you want to spend your crest to get high item level. I know you want to do this stuff, but just wait. Like, just wait a little bit. Make sure you read Reddit. Make sure you check the Wowhead news stuff. Like, just see what people are doing. Check the raiders. See what, Liquid is doing or Echo's doing. Like, don't rush into spending any resources that are
I think
not, that are finite.
Dude, I think that like it's it's impossible to actually like fuck up your character.
Yeah, exactly. It's not a big deal. That was
Yeah.
my first point, right? Is like you shouldn't just hold back if you don't really care that much, which is honestly how you should play. Like,
Yeah.
having 1 or 2 item level difference is going to matter so little.
Now, if you do raid in my raiding guild, however, and your first craft is a PvP weapon because you prioritize PvP over raiding, now you might get kicked from your guild. But assuming that you're not doing that, it's unlikely to have any real consequences.
Dude, this tweet from Rello always comes up, which is, I think, exactly what we're talking about. This was last year, and it's, WoW players will spend 2 weeks optimizing gearing and being feared about crafting anything because it could lose them 0.1% DPS, but then not spend a single minute on preparing for a raid fight.
Yes.
Yeah,
And
this
it
is
is
so true.
super true.
So we talked about Mythic Plus a little bit. Let's talk about raid. There's obviously prepping for the new expansion. There's raid testing. There's reading the dungeon journal. I think research versus reps is kind of an interesting conversation. How do you min-max the raid? Min-maxing your class. Where do you think that you start by prepping for a raid, Squishy?
I think, honestly, this time, Heroic Week's there, you honestly don't need as much. Because time spent in Heroic, for a lot of guilds, especially if you're not doing splits, you're just gonna run out of stuff to do. Or if you're not ready there, you're gonna do normal first. And normal, you get to see the mechanics beforehand. If you really want to go above and beyond, yes, you can look at raid testing. But honestly, I don't even know if it's necessarily needed because I think the fights are a lot simpler this time around.
Yeah, I think raid testing is super useless. I think regardless of what level you're at, I think one really good thing that you can do if you want to prepare for the raid is watch a video of your class doing the fight.
Yeah.
Most guilds do not, you'll be able to find some, like, even if you're in a very casual guild and you're only going to do like the first couple bosses in normal, you could still go look up somebody who's doing the bosses and kind of see like a general idea. Things you want to look for. Number one, where is that person standing? If they're standing, are they far away from the boss? Are they close? Are they in this corner? Number two is when they use their cooldown. Do they just pop them over and over when they're up? Do they hold for specific things? What are they targeting? And honestly, just with those two things, where should I stand and where do I use my cooldowns? It'll free up a lot more headspace for you to actually like think about your rotation and how you should handle the mechanic. You don't I wouldn't go full in depth of every single defensive use or every single boss mechanic. Literally just keep it real simple of okay, where do I stand? Where do I use my cooldowns? And then just kind of autopilot that and then engage in the fight as you raid.
Yeah. Lorgs.io is the resource that you were looking for that. And I think that, just trying to...
That's cooldown timings, yeah.
Yeah, just trying to figure out your cooldown timings is going to be super, super valuable. But obviously not, movement and mechanics and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think that's something that Squishy said about the Heroic Week. That's actually super true because it doesn't really let you fall behind as much, especially if you're somebody who maybe has aspirations of doing mythic raiding. Does preparation and research change if you're not in a guild, Squishy? In regards to say you wanted to pug the raid, does research change at all, or is it just about getting into a pug?
I think if you are looking to lead a pug, which competent pug leaders are going to have bigger success, you're going to need to research the shit out of the raid and understand how things work, what assignments you're going to need, etc.
Okay.
If you're just joining, honestly, with the way pugs are, you probably will also need a higher level than, say, going somewhat blind with a guild. Just because if every time a pug wipes, people are probably going to leave. And so to do whatever you can to reduce the chance of a wipe, you might want to look into it a little more. But ultimately, it's a game. Play how you want to play, man.
Yeah. I think raid testing and actually watching videos for raid is I feel like it's something that's talked about a lot, but it also is not as valuable. As long as you know like a couple of the core mechanics on the boss, and I think that's like the most important thing. It's like what can wipe us, and then it's like as long as you know what can wipe you, and like at least at like a high level, what you're supposed to be able to do or what you're supposed to be doing, I think that's like totally reasonable. But then once you get into Mythic, it's like almost a completely different. Your preparation, obviously, it's not. Like your preparation is gonna be a really big deal at that point.
Oh yeah, I mean, if you're going into day one Mythic rating on Mythic Week, then you should. Be
You're watching the race first.
Yeah, you should be looking for advice other than what does the cat with a waffle on his head say. You got to put in a little bit more investment than that.
Yeah, I mean, you've already done the entire raid on Heroic, and then I actually do think that once you've done the entire raid on Heroic, if you then go and read the Mythic mechanic, you already kind of like understand like from a structural and pacing perspective, like what you're supposed to be doing on the boss most of the time, and then there's some obviously like overlap changes and whatnot.
Yeah. Oh.
Okay. What else? Anything else for research and prepping for the new expansion?
That covers most of it.
Hopefully we don't have to download the giant raid week aura pack. Usually I recommend not doing that, by the way. Almost always before the raid, there's like, I mean, the way it looks
there's
like
no weak
now,
auras.
it's going to be a standalone add-on and not a weak aura. But basically, I would recommend, like, in the pre-patch, especially and early on, getting familiar with your UI and being, like, understanding how to do things. Like, hey, I have a debuff. How do I change the noise on this? Or how do I put this in the middle of my screen? Or, like, you know, little things like that. Or, like, how do I make my debuffs more visible? Or whatever UI enhancements are allowed in Midnight, make sure you're familiar with how to do that stuff. That way, when you run into those problems, you know, in the raid release, you're not just sitting here being like, duh, you know, or like downloading some giant add-on package that has all these things that are hard to customize. I think like getting fluent with how to use your tools is really important, regardless of like, you know, where they end up standing in Midnight.
Yeah. Download the Growl Week Aura pack. Just pay him some money, and he'll watch your stream and call it everything for you. Right? That's how it works.
That would be sick. I've always thought about that. Well, I don't know if we'll be able to do custom sounds now, but it would be so funny to just have like a sub-only custom sound pack of like, you know, the streamer saying all of the things. I feel like that would be a hit.
Waffle UI.
I mean, UI. Tettles, do you not remember your Thing from Beyond Week Aura sound?
That was good.
Dude, the Thing from Beyond one was
custom. Sounds and WoW are actually a pain in the ass to set up.
They're not that bad. Yeah.
You have to have like a really weird file extension for them, and I don't know. I found them to be really.
I guess I just meant like setting it up once it already exists.
Oh yeah, sure. Having a call is like fine. Getting the sound set up is like I found it to be really annoying whenever I was doing
very early in my stream career, when I was like getting different iterations of the waffle cap made. I had got one made by somebody who, let's say, wasn't the best artist, but I didn't know at the time. And what they sent me back was just like extremely demonic to the point where I'm like, I mean, I paid them but I'm like, there's no way I would ever use this. And then one of my mods at the time made it into my Thing from Beyond Week Aura, which is basically like it would spawn these ghosts that would run at you and they'd be like clones of you. But it replaced the ghost with just this giant demonic cartoon waffle cat. And it just fucking killed me every time it spawned on my screen.
Yeah, dude, I forgot about that. That was good.
Yeah.
Okay, I think we're gonna talk about UI next week. I think that's what's been discussed in our group chat.
We'll talk about UI and add-ons every week. Don't worry.
Okay, we're talking about setting up your UI, not because we got pre-patch on the 20th, right? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, yes. I think once the pre-patch comes out, we'll definitely do like I don't know if it's next week, but it's soon in the future, like a banger UI like figuring out exactly what you need to do in the pre-patch. Yeah. That's definitely coming for sure. So that's kind of why we're omitting the
I think
UI specifics out of this episode. I think
the pre-patch episode needs to be next episode, right? Because then pre-patch
the pre-patch episode is the next one.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
I mean, I'm not gonna have much useful to say if the pre-patch isn't even out yet, but okay.
Well, like, what is changing? Okay, I guess there's nothing fucking changing.
Whatever. Guys, we just come up with stuff from week to week, all right? We don't know what's going on. Or rather, I should say, Tettles does. That's why he's freaking out.
Goodbye.
Bye.